Bro, what's for dinner, man?
Bro, get off of me, man. Get off of me, dude.
What's for dinner, bro?
You too old to be all over me like this, bro. Get
Can
off
you answer
me,
the question, man?
I'm getting Chinese food. I don't know what you eating, bro.
What you mean you getting, bro?
Yeah, I'm getting. You already had it, so it's my turn now. I don't know what you eating. I'm getting Chinese food.
Bro, come on, bro. Why you acting like that?
Hey, bro, don't try to strong arm me, man. Get off me, bro. I have to get. All right, play with me.
Nah, you alright.
I'm gonna put this phone down, and man.
I want you to take these headphones off before I break them. That's what I want you to do.
You gonna break an ass whip and quit playing with me.
No, I'm finna get my belt out this closet.
Go get it. Go get it. Oh, I want you to get it. Go get it.
No,
please,
man.
Go get it.
Because if I get it, it's gonna hurt you more than it's gonna hurt me. So no, man. Nah, relax, bro.
Hey, bro, get off me, man.
Relax, bro.
Get off me, man.
Over here ruining my high and shit,
if you love me, just say, Pops, I love you, and get your hug and go on about your business.
I do love you, man.
All right, then go on, bro.
I do love you, bro.
All right, go on, man. I love you, too. Now go on about your business before I have to get mad. Don't make me get mad. Hey, bro, you got 3 seconds to quit holding me.
Oh, what, bro?
It's finna get real personal.
Get real personal for
all right, let me turn this phone
3,
off.
2,
right.
1.
What's going on, y'all? It's always doing different stuff every time. Anyway, what's good, people? Hope y'all are well. Welcome back to the Onyx Report, Black Masculinist news for the day. Yeah, man. I love that video, too. I had to start with that. I had to. Dealing with fathers, and fathers are not always being honored and respected the way they should be, especially Black fathers. So I just wanted to put a quick word. You're not going to be here long. I needed to put a little word out there about something I've been seeing in regard to fathers, and I just wanted to say something about it. But I thought in the midst of all we deal with in regard to Black fathers, we should start with something that actually shows what Black fathers tend to be like. So I love that particular clip because it's very similar to a lot of Black fathers I've seen. A little bit similar to myself and my son. So I think it needed to be kind of put out there to set the stage. What's going on, people? Shout out to Carl, big brother Malika. What's up, man? Shout out to Layman's Journal. Oh, Layman, you don't have a wrench? Okay, hold on. I'm gonna put that. I'm gonna change that a little bit. All right. Shout out to Layman's Journal. Y'all check out the Layman's Journal channel. Hope you're well, good brother. What's up, Donnie? How you doing? Shannon? Issy, what's up? Growth Talk. What's good, man? Support the Growth Talk, the Kofa channel. Yeah, that's what's up. And Prince, what's going on? We got Dead Set in the house. What's up? Cool Breeze managed to pop in. I hope you're well, brother. I need to get an update on what's happening with you and your family, so hit me when you get a chance, man. And then shout out to Fred. What's going on? Let's see. Quanos, what's up? Oh, appreciate that. Dev Apostle, appreciate that. Y'all like, share, subscribe, join, and donate. Support the channel so we can continue to bring you this independent black male thought. You know what I'm saying? Let me see. Dr. L, what's going on? I've never talked to you. I've seen you in the comments over at BGS, but hope you're well, good brother. But anyway, yeah. Now, over the years, I've talked about some of the different things related to Black fatherhood. I've talked about some of the stats. I even put it on the thumbnail for this video that Black fathers are the most involved. A lot of the data that's thrown back and forth about Black fathers is often misunderstood, and you know, truthfully, some people are purposely lying about what they're saying with the data or how they're presenting it to cast Black men, Black fathers in a bad light. You know, it's not that the majority of kids have no father around. It's more so that the parents are not necessarily married, but fathers tend to be quite involved and have only grown so in the last 6 decades. So Black fathers are definitely involved, but that's not the point of tonight. I wanted to address something I've been seeing lately in the last few weeks on these discussions when people are talking about Black fathers, one of the things I noticed is that when it comes to this question of the absence of Black fathers, I think the most consistent thing I've heard are the same 4 tropes I've been hearing for the last 40 odd years. And they tend to be, what's up, Mike? I am Waffles. What's going on? They tend to be, obviously, well, I'll start with this. So they're either, the stereotypes are we're either in prison, we're rolling stones, meaning that we don't have a monogamous bone in our body. We don't love family. We're just, dropping seeds left and right. I've heard the derogatory and inaccurate statement that we just want white women. And of course, the most prevalent is the deadbeat dad. The deadbeat dad is a convenient, throwaway, deflective stereotype that puts the onus of the state of the Black family and its debilitating, kind of status in the hands of Black men, right? Subtext to that is that Black men are just incapable of being fathers. And for years, there were plenty of Black women that were happy to use this stereotype, Black feminists most particularly. Shout out to Black Nerd, what's up? And this was the idea. This was the most prevalent idea. And so what I see happening, even in Black male spaces online, are Black men in particular, starting with those stereotypes as the starting point of the discussion, right? Most particularly the deadbeat dad narrative, and trying to argue for some kind of humanity from that framework. Now, they will eventually recognize the CDC data to some extent, but I find it interesting that that's the go-to. I just kind of wanted to add something else to the discussion that I think, many are aware of, but often dismiss. Now, I'm going to start this with a demonstration of how Black fathers are not honored and are ignored, disrespected. So in order to do this, I'm going to show a clip, and I'm going to say in advance, because I often forget to do so. Damn, I even forgot the term you're supposed to use. Man, I've been messing this up. Anyway, I'm going to start with this clip. Hang on, let me pull this in here. I'm going to need you guys to confirm that you can hear it. So let me, oh, that's weird. There we go. Sound is on. So shout out to Passport OG. He dropped a video a little while ago, about 5 days ago, that I thought was really interesting. And it had a clip in it from DC that I wanted to share. So I'm just going to play a quick second. I want to know with ones in the chat if you can hear it.
The number of murders in one.
Okay, so if you could just hear that part, give me a 1 in the chat. Make sure the sound is working okay. So I finally got a new mixer, and Layman said 1. Good, thank you. Finally got a new mixer, but I'm not really working out kinks. I'm just trying to make sure there aren't any, but so far so good. All right. So this is a clip from the House Committee hearing on DC oversight, and it actually ends up having to do with Black fatherhood. And I think Passport OG does a brilliant job in this video of kind of highlighting the disrespect and the, complete dismissal of Black fathers, both in regard to how the Black community often seems to look at the Black family, but also when it comes to policy and when it comes to resources. But check this out.
The number of murders in Washington, D.C. is an embarrassment. The amount of crime is embarrassment. I guess the thing is what we're doing to solve it. And we just heard 4 experts apparently on the topic give their opinion. I sometimes, when I'm back in my district, which is not Washington, D.C., do ride-alongs with local police, local sheriffs, local police, what have you. And I ask them what the causes of crime, and almost uniformly they talk about the breakdown in the family and how families are not as strong as they once were, is how they're not fathers in the family. And I think if you look at statistics, which are hard to find on the background of people committing crimes, you frequently look at what I would describe as weak families and fatherless families.
This is Mr. Glenn Grothman, a representative out of Wisconsin's 6th district. Culturally, we are probably about as far apart as can be possibly imagined. But when he's talking about simple things like, I'm hearing that most of the family.
And appreciation, I should say real quick to Donnie, because I forgot the term fair use. Fair use, here we go.
Families don't have fathers in them. And he's talking to a panel of people in Washington, D.C., telling him we need $800 million in funding because we're doing X, Y, and Z. And he's saying, yeah, but when I talk to the people that are policing the district, they're saying the biggest issue is that the fathers aren't there. What is your response to that? As a voter, a Black male voter who sees the need to have the father in the home, while you're seeing young ladies celebrate getting child support checks as winning, and then people from other cultures saying all you have to do is be a man, it just doesn't add up. So why wouldn't someone who has voted Democrat his whole life not listen to Mr. Glenn Grothman basically speaking facts?
Nevertheless, 4 of you in your prepared statements and talked about what we're doing to reduce crime. Not one of you mentioned the decline of the role in the decline of the role of the father in the family over the last. It's been just getting worse over the last 60 years. I'd like to ask you: are any of you doing anything to try to keep more fathers at home and being mentors for these kids? The vast majority of murders are committed by males. Are you doing anything along the line to get the fathers back in the home?
Congressman, let me answer that by saying and I know that I focused a lot on our law enforcement efforts, but we commit to and invest in a lot of prevention efforts as well, from incredible and effective funding of our public schools to our.
Yeah, I only got 5 minutes. We got to address the topic. What are we doing to get fathers in the home?
Well, sir, we take the position that we support families in whatever form they come in.
Now, let me just quickly say, the last time we heard that kind of language was with BLM on their website. And the basic idea was that every form of family you could imagine in the Black community void of a father was acceptable. So this kind of smacks of that with that undertone, but here we go.
And we make investments that the government is responsible for. Great schools, great healthcare, safe streets.
Mr. Jackson, do you want to try to answer that question? Are you doing anything?
Yes, a major priority for funding for community violence intervention programs focused directly on mentorship with young men. In DC, we have a program called Pathways. We work directly with those who are most at risk, and it's about everything from not just preventing violence, but how to be providers and protectors in the home.
Well, are we doing anything to make sure that a higher percentage of children born in the district are born in families in which there's a father in the home? Are we?
Now, explain to me, as someone who has voted Democrat for the entirety of my life, why there are no Democrats that sound like this. Now, can I go all the way to the other side and vote Republican? I'm not ready to do that just yet. But come on. I mean, this is a guy from Wisconsin, a Republican, and he sounds like the most sane person in the room. These kids are bad. Where's their dad at? And you're talking about all of these other things. We include all types of families, and we're doing mentorship programs. Yes, can the kids see their father? And they're dancing around the question.
Are we doing something to address that problem, which to me is the big problem? And again, we have these hearings on crime, and none of the witnesses seem to be addressing the root cause of the whole problem.
If I can, that $812 million that was terminated by the Trump administration cut community violence intervention programs. Many of them do precisely that. So if that's a priority, we should be funding, doubling down, and scaling out that work.
I'm not sure that's true, but any other guys, Mr. Schwab, are you aware of anybody doing anything to talk about the importance with Washington's youth of having a dad at home when that child is born? Is anybody addressing that problem in the city?
Every day, all day, sir, people are talking about how do we strengthen the family? How do we strengthen communities for young people? How do we make sure that young people have role models, family members, and others? Let me mention one other
See how quickly they jump to the abstract?
thing that's important from the work that my office does that doesn't make a lot of press. But one of the things we have a responsibility to do is do child support enforcement. And
no, that's not the problem. The problem is we don't need a guy paying child support or having his wages garnished. The problem is we need a guy in the home. So what are we doing about getting the guy in the home?
We're trying to make sure in the enforcement of our child support rules that we are lowering the friction between non-custodial parents and custodial parents, so that kids raised in the home have.
So we're not addressing the problem. Okay, thank you.
I can't think of anything more heartbreaking as a father who loves his son than to see his son taken away from him and then being socialized into this new woke agenda that essentially tells him to be anything except a masculine man.
All right. So in that vein, we're talking about the Gynocracy. Right? But I wanted to kind of take a moment to really just kind of look at the context for the Black fathers discussed. Shout out to Donnie. It says 66% of first-time Black fathers are cohabitating with the mother of their firstborn at the time of birth, per blackdemographics.com. Appreciate that. Yeah, because we've covered this for years on this channel. I wasn't planning to delve into that tonight, but thank you for dropping that. You know, like I said, we're just going to be up here for a minute, but there's just something I want to add to this discussion. So you heard that interesting clip from Passport OG. Agree with the analysis of it as it went on, but you see the point, right? The idea that the Black father should be in the home is often not even considered to any great extent, right? And in that, he did talk about child support, which I think is interesting. A lot of people kind of, assume that will suffice in terms of, bringing in or at least acknowledging some type of father role. And I'm glad that particular politician called that out. That is not the same thing. But just to drop a little bit of information, when you start talking about child support, let's be clear, right? The majority of those who owe back child support have low to no reported income. Significant portion of child support debt or arrears is owed by parents who struggle with poverty, unemployment, and underemployment. Poverty and low employment. Federal studies have shown, let me highlight this, right? That most people with child support arrears have an annual income of $10,000 or less. Right, with many having no reported income at all. California, the average non-custodial parent who owes back child support makes less than $15,000 a year. So there is that. And I've been actually stating that those data points for years as well. But the other thing we got to keep in mind is when we start talking about who is often picked to be a father, much of the time it's a very small population, and they tend to be very poor, if not in and out of some precarious situations. What it is it's a control factor, right? Where women can actually choose men. I've been talking about this on this channel for years. They choose men that they know need them, right? They can get sperm, they can be entertained, they can even get degrees of protection from these men. They're easier to get that from, right? So it's not a surprise that those tend to be the men also that struggle with child support when that button is pushed and she decides to take him to court. But the whole point of tonight is that I talked about the excuses that I've heard about the absent Black father and the deadbeat dad being the main one. But what nobody seems to want to acknowledge is what I talked about before with blue leashing. Now, a couple weeks ago, I dropped this concept and I was trying to explain to people what exactly blue leashing is. So I will do a little reminder here. Blue leashing, the act of a Black woman calling law enforcement on a Black man, not primarily out of fear or danger, but as a means of control, discipline, or retaliation, weaponizing state power to keep him on a leash. And what does that have to do with anything? Well, blue leashing is not just about calling the police or any three-letter government organization. It also involves the family court. It involves judges, right? And it involves policy as well, because policy is what makes this plausible and possible. And since the 1960s and 70s, this is a power that women have wielded and often done so punitively. Right? They've had access to resources. They've had access to judgments that tended to work in their favor when it came to family court. And that often meant, again, especially when you're dealing with a poor environment, right? You got two poor people. You got a poor woman, a poor man. But she not only has access to greater welfare resources, she not only has access to some of the police apparatus, especially after judgments were passed about abuse, which tended to only acknowledge unilateral abuse from men to women. It did not acknowledge bidirectional abuse, and it didn't tend to pay much attention to unilateral abuse from women to men. It only focused on male to female violence, so she could weaponize the police in that regard in her favor. But we all know, and we talk about this colloquially all the time, when people go to court, to family court, right, to work out custody, to work out child support payments, to work out divorce in general, that for years, for decades, these were things that tended to work in their favor. And again, when you're dealing with a small community and a relatively poor one at that, especially when you're talking about poor people in that poor community, that kind of access to family court leverage is extremely powerful. So what am I saying? With blue leashing, I'm talking about the ways in which mothers and wives and women, especially over child custody, even if they weren't married, were able to use courts to push Black men out of the family. This is the part we don't talk about. And it's strange to me, even in circles of men that I know this information, we still don't talk about it. We talk about deadbeat dads. We talk about men that don't want to be monogamous. We talk about all kinds of other dynamics. But for some reason, we ignore that the state gave women the power to push men out of their families. This is something that I reported years ago. I did a show with BGS. And about a half hour before the show, I had a conversation with my mother. And we were talking. And my mother will sometimes, she will talk and you will barely get a word in. You'll say hello, she'll have a conversation and it'll be one way. And then she'll say goodnight and you haven't said a word, So we were in one of those kind of situations where she was talking and she forgot who she was talking to. And as she was talking, and I knew she forgot because she was like, girl. So, she was talking to me, but she went off into girl. So I knew she just forgot who she was talking about. But she said, yeah, and that's why when you get tired, take that nigga to court, push him out, and you get control, and you ain't got to wait for, to make no decisions with no nigga, and then she caught herself. She remembered who she was talking to. And I'm real good for being real quiet when it looks like there's about to be some information dropped. I ain't disrupting nothing. Drop it. Let me hear it. So she stopped herself and she said, oh, well, Hasan, but that's if we're talking about abuse. I said, Ma, we weren't talking about abuse. Abuse never came up. Matter of fact, I didn't even raise the issue of divorce. This was just something you talked about. But my point in bringing that conversation up, and this is about 5 or 6 years ago, probably about 5 when this happened. That was the first time I'd ever heard, not just my mother, but a woman come out and admit it. Because these are things they don't generally admit to us, right? We know this. Even those of us who've experienced it know they're not about to admit it. But my mother admitted it. The use of the courts, the weaponization of the court to push men out, to keep control over the family, decision-making power, and to be able to get resources out of it. Because she talked about being able to push him out and get child support at the same time. The two were linked. They were not separate. Now, I'm not attacking my mother. I just found it interesting that she was willing to say something that I've known that women have done for years, but had not heard anybody admit straight out. And I rarely hear men even talk about it, even in the spaces where men talk about these kinds of things. So as I'm listening to these discussions, and I'm hearing them from men, whose channels I respect, which is why I'm not calling them out. I'm not trying to, suggest anything negative about them. I just don't think it came up. I don't think it crossed their minds. And I think we've gotten very used to talking about Black fatherhood in these derogatory ways. But one of the things I notice is that we are very quick to, of course, critique each other as Black men, which, is what we're going to do. And we're very quick to point out, all the tropes and the stereotypes we've even grown up hearing. But for some reason, nobody wants to talk about this very basic idea. And this is also something that in the last few shows, and I even did a recent blog piece about it. I've done about 2 or 3 blog pieces in the last few weeks. So I'll probably do some separate shows covering those. But this was something I've been talking about in the last few shows. I talked about the 13-point foundation of the Black Gynocracy. And these are basically policy-based practices that gave women sometimes, true access and sometimes the illusion of access, but nevertheless, resources and support that Black men didn't get. Right? And in so doing, created a gynocracy of women who were in decision-making power in their households. They had decision-making power. Nobody could really question them. Nobody could challenge them because they could use the courts to reinforce their position. And this is not always, I'm not suggesting it's all on the up and up either. Sometimes they lie. Sometimes they'd abuse their position. Much of the time. I said this before and I've had this reported to me when brothers are telling me themselves that their lawyers are even advising them to file false charges of abuse, false charges of molestation against the kids to gain, footing in a divorce situation. The use and leverage of that type of institutional power is something we don't talk about. And so when we look through the 1970s and the 1980s, we don't talk enough about the acceptance and widespread use of pushing Black men out of families using institutions that are designed, functionally around some degree of law enforcement, right? Whether it's in the court or on the street, off a cop car or a cop walking, whatever it is, we don't talk about it that way. And we have to start looking at these things institutionally. One of my problems is we have too many of these conversations strictly about individuals, who likes who did what to who, but we gotta also start looking at these things institutionally. These were not arbitrary things that women did just because they were evil. These were things that they were able to do because of policy. And one of the things I argue is over generations, that policy access begins to shape worldview and behavior, meaning that the entitlement, the assumptions about Black female superiority that many of us talk about in the Black community, we can't name it, nobody will admit to it, but we've been talking about it amongst ourselves as men for the longest. This is not something that comes out of nowhere. This is conditioned behavior from having access, from having opportunities, from having resources, from having a safety net that your men don't get. Now, we know in the last 8 or 9 months, a lot of that has been broken down. A lot of that has been, torn down. It's being dismantled. I've said this before, Black women are starting to experience life the way Black men have been living it, without a safety net, right? But the reason I can talk about that is because prior to the last 8 or 9 months, going back the last 60 odd years, what we've seen is access to resources. And those resources have shaped behavior and worldview in Black women. Now, we can talk about individuals that defied that. Yes, I've known women that purposely didn't take their husbands to court. They just amicably set up a breakup. They divorced, signed paperwork, called it a day. That didn't talk mess about their the child's father to the child. I've seen examples of that. So this isn't a question of all women, but it's enough because these are systemic practices, right? And so you have women who are participating in the removal and exclusion, the banishment of Black fathers simply because they can. And this is something that's passed down. I come from a family of majority women. I've seen the little war councils, right? Where you have grandmother talking to daughter, talking to granddaughter about what they can do. I've seen those conversations with newly married women where older women are reinforcing for her what she can do if he doesn't act right. And much of the time, it was always about blue leashing. Of course, there were some other things in there about, fighting with him, arguing with him, stressing him. There was all of that. But there was also this over-reliance on state resources, right? The idea that you can push this on him at any particular moment and use it against him. You can call the police. You can make up something. This is why some of these women are getting caught on video, because for the longest, we didn't have smartphones. Right. So you're actually seeing, and I've shown a few of these over the last few months, a few of these videos of women getting caught talking about, I'm going to lie to the cops, telling the man directly, I'm going to lie to the cops. This is what I'm going to say to them. And then when the cops get there and even catch them in a lie, those women are surprised when they get handcuffs put on them, because for the longest they didn't. They wouldn't be arrested. They could get away with that. Women could lobby, accusations on celebrities. And if they weren't able to settle out of court, or, even worse, they found out that this person was lying, their names wouldn't even be put in the paper. They would suffer very few to no punishments. So when you have a game that's rigged that way, where you can make false accusations with no repercussions, how do you think you're going to start to see the world? How do you think you're going to start to see your own behavior? The entitlement level went through the roof over the last 6 decades for a reason. This is conditioned behavior based off of policy. But as it pertains to the Black family, just wanted to kind of stop and make a statement about when we talk about Black father absence, there is another thing we need to put in there that goes beyond just Black men don't care about family, or Black men are in prison, or, Black men are just inherently trifling, or they just want white women or Latino women. These kind of dismissive, deflective, stereotypical statements about Black men used to deflect and change the conversation, so we don't actually have to critique women in particular. But really, what we also have to pay attention to is the use and abuse of institutional leverage on excluding Black men from family and decision making. And that has been one of the most impactful dynamics on the Black family going back for the last 60 years. That for some reason seems to escape much of the conversation about the Black family structure. When she has state support to basically lead the family pretty much any way she wants to with your resources and your absence at the same time. And the part about it that really has struggled, that men have struggled with for these decades, is that any woman could do it. So I'm not saying every woman did do it, but any woman could do it. We knew, most men came to understand, which is one of the reasons that marriage has been declining for years, and nobody wants to admit the reasons why. We want to make it about men's behavior. We want to talk about incels, but nobody wants to talk about, or very few people are willing to talk about, how many of these policies and laws have not operated on behalf of men. They have not even taken men's humanity into account. This is why when I reported on what's been going on in Kentucky, I think I was one of the first few to do it on YouTube. I talked about this a few weeks ago, if not a month ago. Kentucky, instituted some 50-50 custody clauses that we've been pushing for in the Black male political agenda. And the divorce rates dropped precipitously, right? Because women were figuring out that they couldn't just, hit the button to get cash and prizes. They couldn't just, call for a divorce, instantly get child support and child custody and call it a day. They couldn't do it. The courts were giving 50-50 custody as a standard base. So they changed up their strategy. And the first thing they did was they stopped divorcing their husbands. When they couldn't get, those resources, they stopped divorcing them, or at least the divorce numbers dropped dramatically, right? Which to me only illustrated how strategic this practice has been. It's been such a go-to for generations of women that they've always kind of viewed it as a resource. You get tired of them, you wake up one day and you're not happy. Hell, some people strategize this from before they even get with the man, let alone have children with them. Sometimes it's a strategy that, I've heard women even on social media talk about purposely going to several different men to have children so they could have several different child support judgments from different men, as opposed to having multiple children with one man, different children with different men, to get more money in child support. So this has long since become a strategic practice for some women. But the fact that any woman can invoke it is a problem. And the fact that for men to try and invoke something similar, it's not impossible, but it's highly unlikely. And when you kind of keep those two thoughts in your head at the same time, you have to talk about the role the state plays in the diminishment and the underdevelopment of the Black family. And it's not just the Black family, but, I talk to Black men on this channel, so that's what we deal with. Right? And I think it's been more impactful for our community than others, particularly when you have no inherited wealth. That compounds the problem. And when you add in that men could go to prison, right, for not being able to pay child support, I just pointed out to you, the majority of those men who owe arrears on child support make less than $10,000 a year. Get the driver's license taken, have to do time, then have to come out and often have to get a new job, a new place to live, so on and so forth. Right? So we're not even talking about how that contributes to homelessness. But my only point in doing tonight's show is just to kind of put a quick word out there. If you're going to have a critical dialogue about the Black family and the absence of Black fathers, which is, a trope in and of itself that needs to be explored, then at the very least, you should also have a conversation about what kind of powers the state has given the average woman to exclude a man from the family. And I hear people say, it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter what she does. You should stick it out. Man, I've met fathers that can tell you horrendous stories of just being put through hell. And some men finally reach the point where they're like, you know what? I love my kids, but I'm going to take this shoebox and I'm going to keep every receipt from child support. I'm going to keep every letter she sent back that I didn't, that the child didn't get from me. I'm going to keep all of that in the box. And maybe one day when my child is old enough and seeks me out, I can show them all the things that they weren't told. Until that point, I might either go start another family, or just check out of the whole dynamic altogether. See, when I was growing up, when I heard men who made those decisions talked about, they were talked about as monsters. And I thought of them as monsters because that's what I was taught. Men who abandon family, right? There's another variation of the deadbeat dad narrative. Not the one that left the family, but even after a divorce, just kind of faded away. But they don't actually tell you what kind of hell he was put through in terms of access to seeing his kids, any of that. Nobody talked about that. So children just walked away with the perception that they weren't loved or valued. But now you're starting to hear cases of grown adult, grown children, so to speak, grown offspring going to find their fathers and finding out that there was a story they'd never heard. But again, when women have access to state resources and sole access at that, what then? For many fathers going through the child support, going through the family court process, you're often finding them having to pay for her lawyers as well as their own lawyers, have to deal with, potentially false accusations about abuse, molestation. And then, of course, you have the practice in the court of, making the base assumption that women are inherently better parents. Those kind of things are stacked one on top of another. Now, if you have the resources to pay lawyers and go through that process, like my boy Dead said, you got a chance. But if you don't, what does the average dude do? What do you do? What options are available to you? And once it's all over, somebody stamps deadbeat dad, and your story is relegated to just that. So to me, it's a convenient deflection. It's a way of blaming Black men, leaving it at that, and not actually getting into the weeds about what actually can occur and has occurred for decades. Hopefully now it's starting to be overturned, but we don't know. So let me see some of the comments. I'll start with some of the donated comments. First of all, shout out to Spain Man. Salute. Good evening to you as well. Appreciate that. Member for 37 months. Thank you. Ghostwriter says family court laws are actually written gender neutral, but are applied and enforced with gender bias because of the tender years doctrine. Absolutely. And that's something I've been talking about with policy, around gender, Title IX, so on and so forth. Much of it is written gender neutral, but the practice of it is a very different thing, right? And that's one of the things we're fighting about. Right? So let me see. Mr. Z, what's good with you, man? Good to see you popping in. Let's see. Dead said always got something to drop on this because he's been through the mill with this. This process has made me so financially broke that I'm like a freshman college student now. Yeah, let me know if you want to come up. I mean, I'm not going to be on here long, but if you want to drop a word, I'm always good to get an update from you, man, because you going through stuff I've never even heard of, man. So let me know if you want to pop up real quick. Let's see. So you got Juicy Juice saying denied access even during medical emergency. There you go. Recently moved across the country, but I still take care of my daughter and video call her. Yeah. Let me see. I'm traveling upwards. Ghostwriter says 20 to 50% of gross income. Let's see. What's up, Ray? Ray says, how can a Black man get justice for wrongs done to him? Exactly. Girl talk, if you want to come up for a second, let me know that as well. Let's see. Tiger Crane says, and that's very important for us to bear in mind, backing the state, enabling women in their harpy behavior. Yes. Right. And if you got, look, we right at this point, we talking about from grandmother's. So I'm 50. I'm talking about from my grandmother's lifetime all the way down to great grandchildren at this point. So 5 or so generations, we can talk about these practices being in place, right? And how these men have been treated. Black Nerd says, my wife was watching Real Housewives of WTV, and she was saying men should just pay child support. Led to a lengthy discussion, which made me realize I have to start showing her your content. Right. Because for women, it's a straight narrative. Well, we're going to get a divorce. I'm going to get a divorce. I'm unhappy now, and he'll just pay child support. And for them, it's A to Z. It's quick. It's done. Right. And many of the things that they can do, especially through a lawyer, they don't even really have to participate in to any great extent. It's at this point, it's a machine. Shout out to Gail at night. What's good with you? She says you get a bigger child support check if you have children with different men, but that's sick though. Well, you got people that do it nonetheless. Shout out to Face Facts, says a corrupt court system that monetizes Black women's traitorism. Right? Well, think about it too, especially if she's frustrated at you, right? And people suggest that if a woman's frustrated at you, you must have done something. You must have cheated on her, or put hands on her or something like that. And those things happen. I'm not denying that, but much of that abuse we've talked about before is bidirectional. But the truth is, it doesn't have to be that extreme. If you're in an environment where you have women who've thought about being with a man, thought about a husband since they were little girls, right? So she's got these things in her head that she expects that a relationship will provide her, especially if she's come up in a family where she hasn't even seen a man. There's been no long-term male presence, but she has all these ideas about what a husband will do for her. And most importantly, how a husband will make her feel. And then she gets with a regular in-person man, a real human being. And no matter what he does or doesn't do, if he doesn't successfully make her feel the way she expects to feel, this is somehow his fault. And she can become very frustrated and use all of those resources we talked about to punish him for not making her feel the way she wanted, or not doing the things she imagined he should do. It's not a question of whether he could or couldn't. Not a question of whether she even voiced that those were concerns and that they agreed upon those things. It's simply a matter of her being able to impose her will using resources that are rooted in the state, right? So men can experience long-term punishment just for those types of slights, and they become permanent and have a huge impact on his life that nobody wants to talk about. Shout out to Ian Graves, man. Ian has been holding it down for years, putting information out there on for the channel. So thank you for that, good brother. It's good to see you in here. Hope you're well. So let me see. Back to the bottom. I'm gonna put a link out there. Now this is specifically for either Dead Set or Growth Talk. Put the link out there if y'all want to pop up. If not, we'll close it out pretty quickly. But let me look at a few more of these comments here. Michael says, going through divorce in Kentucky right now. Thank goodness for 50-50 custody. Exactly. And just so y'all are aware, I'm going to put this up, because these are things we've been talking about for years on this channel. Let's see. There we go. What up, Dead Set?
Hey, greetings.
Man. How you been, man?
I'm still living, so that's can't complain about that.
Well, before we get there, I just want to put this up real quick so people can know. Again, if you haven't checked out the 19-point Black male political agenda, you can go to newblackmasculinities.wordpress.com, and it is the pinned article at the top. But family court reform is the first point out of all 19. And it has 18 subpoints, right? But the very first subpoint is child custody. And it said this includes automatic 50-50 child custody as long as fathers can prove what mothers are required to as far as being able to provide a stable and safe living environment. Once determined, pre-existing income-based alimony and child support judgments levied against Black men should be reassessed. Also, child support payments for either parent should be eliminated with 50-50 custody and should only be considered if there isn't 50-50 custody arrangement. So we've been advocating for that for the longest, and Kentucky has implemented it. A number of other states have followed Kentucky in that, and we're hoping it'll go further. But anyway, so I wanted to get an update from you, man, on your situation, because in these circles, you're kind of famous for going the full distance in these courts. But what's going on with you now, and what do you have to say to this whole, well, let me reverse it. First, what do you have to say about this whole issue of women's ability to push men out of the family using family court policy? And then tell us a little bit about where you're at now and what's going on with you.
In summary, I want to burn the whole thing down. I mean, that's roughly it, because there's something sinister about their ability to do what they do. And they don't even have to think about it, and they plan around it, and then the lawyers capitalize on it. So we know that this is a machine. So with that, look, don't make me march to Philadelphia because I'm gonna have my gun in hand too, or whatever it is that that Shay's rebellion took place. But on my personal case, they pulled some more slick mess because she had been guilty of contempt again. And what they said was the judge didn't want to touch it. And this is what I meant when I posted that the judges actively avoid punishing the mother.
Yeah.
And so what they did is they pushed me up to another judge who did not know the case and he didn't want to rule on it. And it was interesting watching that happen because it was like, wait a minute. They gave you this case. Number one, you don't have any background on it at all. So I understand why he did not want to rule on it, but he had enough information to know he didn't want to touch it.
Yeah.
And so basically my next strategy is this is something I recently found out, that family courts are actually courts of equity.
Okay.
And I did not really fully understand what that was. I knew that the family court was a different division of the court system, but it's not common law. And so one of the strategies that I'm seeking now is to move my case out of the court of equity and into common law, because now that's where all of the constitutional protections can't be supposedly circumvented.
Okay.
Yeah. And so if you look at the country of New Zealand, they have politicians actively trying to move those cases out of the court of equity and into common law for the very same reasons that I'm illuminating now.
Okay. Okay. So what will you have to do, like how on the ground, especially for anybody that might be closely in your situation or even close to it? What has to be done differently on your part?
Well, I'm filing motions.
Okay.
It's the only thing we can do. That's what a lawyer would do anyway. I just file a motion saying I want it moved out of the court of equity and into common law. Now they're not supposed to be able to deny you that, because every court in the state of Maryland is a common law court, but it falls under the jurisdiction of family law. And I'm like, dude, this ain't working, because y'all have used family law to violate my constitutional protections by taking my family, taking my children away, and then knowing that she committed fraud, just not doing anything about it. And so that's my first strategy. And if that doesn't happen, then I just move it. Since I'm living in Virginia now, I'll just move it out of Maryland jurisdiction.
Okay.
And then, pursue the same strategy of having it put back in common law court.
Man, how long has this been going on for you?
May 13th, 2021.
Damn. 6 years.
And the accusations were made against me in December of 2020. So,
wow.
They were ruled out in February before court. In fact, they were ruled out in February of 2021. They were thrown out of court in April of 2021. And then, succinctly, when I went to divorce court in May of 2021, the judge just didn't care. He said, nope, you're going on child support. I'm taking your kids. That was it.
Wow.
Michael DePietro, that's his name.
Damn. It's shocking to me how easily and coldly those decisions can be made, and nobody blinks. When it comes to your rights, when it comes to your access, it's all part of the machine.
Yeah. And the machine is so large, though, because I did appeal. And anybody who's ever been through the appellate court process knows how expensive it is.
Yeah.
A lot of my money went to that entire process, and I didn't even get a hearing until I think it was like a year and a half later.
Right.
So they wrote their summary and they agreed with the judge, even though there were no grounds for me to lose my children. And every lawyer that I went to, I had a lawyer at the time of the appeal who represented me. All of them said the same thing. There was no reason here why you should have lost your children. In fact, she should have been questioned on why she made that accusation in the first place. So,
let me see.
Is what it is.
Ace Triple X says they laughed at me when I got arrested in family court.
So I didn't get arrested because that would have opened up a new can of worms. The problem is with me, because I had to give up my house and I had to sell it off in Baltimore. So that's the reason why I'm not there anymore. So, but I refused to pay. That's the other thing. I was like, okay, y'all took my money forcibly and all this other stuff, because I was hit with roughly $30,000 a year in child support.
Okay.
And for 2 kids now. And so basically I told them I won't give them 1 red cent. And so they took my license, they did whatever they needed to do. And I was like, okay, fine. I got talents, I'll work another career. So I've been building my new career up from scratch since roughly 2023. So I had to start all over at 50 years old. Wow.
Let me get Kofa in on this discussion, and y'all pay attention to the avatar, because he's newly got access to a son that looks like a carbon copy of him. But Kofa, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, man. Weigh in on this, man. What do you got to say about, the resources and access that women have to law enforcement, to family court, and what do you also want to bring to this discussion about the whole process?
Document, gentlemen. Keep everything, the emails, the text messages, all that. So my son, as you can see on the screen, I just found out about him last year. Me and his mother broke up in 2021. I shared like the full story, pretty much all I could do. I did like a 3-hour live on my channel of this story last year. But I just found out about him last year. So he had just turned 2 at the time. She hit me up on IG. Now, mind you, I haven't seen this woman since 21. But she hit me up on IG and the first sentence was, I was going to take this secret to my grave. She lied to me about having an abortion back in 21 when we broke up, and just kept him away. So now I'm having to rush trying to figure out if there is a kid. I found out there was a child, because of course I didn't know who he was, because she told me she had an abortion. Had to get in touch, and I'm doing it in 2 states. I want to say that I'm having to do it in Alabama and Georgia. Reason being, me and her living in Atlanta. She lost him and his 2 older brothers due to child abuse charges. So, when they don't just take one, they take all of them. So they went back with her mother in Alabama for a minute. Her mother is also a liar. She manipulated the system, was trying to get custody of all 3 of them before I found out. So the only reason I found out is because my son's mother told me about him. So now I'm rushing, trying to get added to the already pending court case. Got in touch with the guardian ad litem, got the blood test, got added to the case. I walked out of court with him on July 31st of last year.
Congrats.
I'm still trying to get legal custody of him because his mother's charges are still pending. So I have a lawyer here in Georgia. I decided that wasn't working because the case is actually in Alabama. So I have to go through the court in Alabama. I filed for custody back in March. The judge just dismissed the case 2 weeks ago on the 8th of September. Okay. The listed reason was because the mother wasn't able to get served the summons to notify her I was trying to file custody. But I know that's a lie because the court sent it to her address twice. The post office lost the receipt showing that she was actually served. I got a private process server, so that was more money out of my pocket. They couldn't find her. I got the sheriff's office involved at the time, trying to get them to serve her. And at the time, I wrote a letter to the judge, telling her what I was trying to do and asking for I forgot the exact legal term, but basically asking her to rule in my favor since mom wasn't showing up, wasn't responding. Pretty much she told me to exhaust every possibility, which is why I was trying to do that. But in the middle of me trying to exhaust every possibility, she still dismissed the case. So now I have to start all the way over, refile. So I have to repay the sheriff's office to send it out, repay a private process server, and then I have to do something else called a notice of publication here in Georgia and Alabama, where pretty much the court files it with the local newspaper. So I'm just constantly shelling out money. And mind you, she has these pending charges of child abuse. Plus, before we got together in 2021, she was married in 2020. Her and that ex got into it, and she set fire to two of her then spouse's family members' homes. So she had an arson charge in Alabama, which she was convicted of in 2023. Arson in Alabama carries 10 years. She was convicted of it, and she only did 2 months. They let her right back out. That's how she ended up here in Atlanta, and we linked back up. And I had no idea this stuff was going on in 2020. Had no idea. So the court has slapped her on the wrist and sent her on her way for her to eventually abuse the kids.
Now, hold on 1 second. Let me first, two things. One, shout out to Wrench Turner. Appreciate that, man. It's good to see you. Says the system is rigged. Black men have every reason to do what's in their best interest, travel abroad, marry, date out, cut family off, etc. It's amazing what we can accomplish with a clear mind and minimal distractions. So shout out to him. And he came up recently to talk about his own situation. But the other thing I wanted to point out, was something you just were talking about a second ago, after you mentioned she got a slap on the hand. Damn, what did you say right after that?
They just sent her on her way. She's still out to pretty much commit another crime. Because then she got the case. She was convicted in 2023, did 2 months, left Alabama, came to Atlanta, and that's when she hurt the kids back in. She was arrested in March of last year, and that court case is still pending in the county. So they haven't even adjudicated that case, which is why I was trying to go ahead and lock something down legally on paper. And now I got to start all over. It's going on year 2. It'll be March again before we know it. So 2 years she's walking around with nothing. And mind you, she's a nurse. So shout out to Kevin Samuels, RIP, brother. Stop dating nurses. I don't give a damn if she's a dental assistant.
Damn.
I don't know what the hell is wrong with these medical women, but she's a nurse. She was still able to maintain her license, even with the pending charges, even with the conviction in Alabama. She lost her license in Alabama. That's why she came to Georgia. So their background checks, the ones that they tell us to do on the women we're dating and stuff, these jobs aren't doing anything thorough, because that would have came up with that type of conviction.
The thing that gets me is for the last 35 odd years, I've had casual conversations with men who've gone through different types of divorces, different situations. And even though I can't say I've heard of both of your exact cases, I've heard other men describe things that were on par to one degree or another in a wholly different way, with issues that I would have never thought to think about, just don't even cross my mind. And how common it is, the kinds of things you guys are talking about, the types of issues being brought to bear, the extent to which the court is willing to overlook on her behalf, or focus on anything that you may have done wrong or anything they perceived as wrong. It's amazing to me how common these stories are amongst men. And yet, rarely, I hate to say this, but rarely do I see it end well. Much of the time, brothers go through hell.
And I want to throw this out, and these, I'm assuming, Dead Set's a regular Joe like me, but I have friends that are, I wouldn't say high profile, but one of them played for the Lakers. He was in the NBA 9 years. Won those last 2 rings with Kobe. He was on the team. Shout out to my homie Josh Powell. He doesn't mind me using his name because he tells this story all the time. And that brother has documentation, and he still has to fight for his children's mother violating the court order on a regular basis. I think he just went over there to pick the kids up yesterday or earlier today, and ended up having to call the police again because she wouldn't give him the kids during the exchange. I have another friend. He's in the music industry, been in the music industry as far back as the height of Death Row. He spent $30,000 getting custody of his daughter. The only thing that really helped him out was the mother was actually like a heavy drug user, not just weed. So that's what helped him. But my homeboy Josh Powell, Me and him have had intimate conversations. He spent over $100,000 trying to get his kids. So so when you say these conversations are commonplace, it doesn't just stop with those regular day-to-day brothers. Right. These are brothers in these, high profile, make good money industries, and they're still having to fight.
I mean, I hate to ask, but can y'all speak to how much you've spent in this process so far? And if you don't want to, I'm good with that. I'm not gonna press it, but just out of curiosity, do either one of you know how much you've spent in this whole process?
Yeah, all told, now this was for the first 2 years. Well, the first year I spent around $50K, and then it was about an extra 25 to 30K after that, and that's where I got depleted.
Man.
Yeah, mine is nowhere near that, so I am counting my blessings. You can see I do have my son. I just don't have the legal custody, but I'm a couple of $1,000s down. When I say a couple, I know I'm over five, somewhere between 5 and 10. And that's just within the last year, and I'm including the court fees, the lawyer that I got in Georgia. The reason why I didn't get a lawyer in Alabama, because that was going to be another $5,000, so that would have well pushed me over 10, and just the gas money going back and forth to Alabama. I include everything, the insurance you pay for them, because you're still taking care of them while you're fighting and can't even, see them. But like I said, mine's a little bit different. As crazy as it is, I've been living a Tyler Perry movie in real life the last year. But I'm somewhere between 5 and 10.
Now, anybody that goes through anything like what Kofa's been talking about, I tell them right away, get a DNA test, and I stand on that on principle. But I will say, when Kofa first told me about all of this shit and sent me a picture of his kid, I was like, man, ain't no court in the world going to see this your child.
Yeah, copy paste.
Yeah, you can see it in the picture there. I'm like, damn, man, if it isn't your child, I don't know what to tell you, because
there's so many layers to it. I know we're focused on the court system and things like that, but in addition, I was the last option to get a call. So when she was staying with me and I was taking care of her 2 boys, and my daughter was also living with us at the time, living with me at the time, we're all in the house together. She was apparently had to be sleeping with at least 2 other men, because I was the third guy that got a call.
Wow.
Yeah, she had convinced her ex-husband, because after we broke up in 21, she turned around, married this white guy, convinced him the baby was his, to the point this man brought his family from Minnesota to Alabama to see, what he thought was his son at the time. And then there was another guy, I think, showed up claiming my son, before I got that final phone call or IG message. Wow. So brothers, vet, feel how you feel about the red pill, passport bros, whatever, but please do vet these women and ask questions, pay attention to the little things they say. I say this all the time. I'll pass it back to you guys. She always used to say, in the context of when she was at work, again, she's a nurse, so she would always tell me these stories from work, somebody she had issues with, and she would always say, they just don't know. I do not play well nice with others. She would always say it in the course of work, a work conversation. But I found out that's just her in general. So pay attention to those little nuances that the women you're dealing with are saying, or how they're moving, or how they moved in the past.
Dead set, man. I don't know, how much access you've had to your kids. Do you get to see them?
Yeah, I speak to them regularly. The last time, I'm supposed to have my son right now. Okay. And I had him before I left Baltimore. And talk about, I got blue leashed there because I met her at Union Station in DC. I picked up my son by myself, the whole 9 yards, and we caught the train back to my mom's house. And then from there, we caught the train back to Baltimore, and we was just chilling at my house, and he was enjoying himself. And she called the police on me. And the police showed up, and she was complaining that he was in Baltimore at my house. And she was like, no, you need to be supervised. And I was like, wait a minute. We came up with this agreement. I picked the boy up with nobody else there.
Right.
And it's the second time that I did that. But for some reason, somebody took a turd in her coffee, and then she, called the cops. And so the cops came up, and I showed them the text messages because I don't talk to her. I was like, no, you text message these agreements.
Yeah.
The cops showed up. I told my son to come out, showed them to him. And then when they saw it, they was like, well, there ain't nothing we can do.
Right.
And so the cops left. I went back in to enjoy my son. Get another ring on my doorbell. She's there with other cops.
What?
Yep.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and this time she showed up. And so finally, I said, look, take him. And mind you, my son, he was really upset by that. But I said,
bet.
Take him. Yeah, I said, take him. I'm not going to sit here and try to litigate this case on the side of the road with cops who are not even qualified to even make that judgment. So that was the last time I saw my son. And at the time, my daughter wasn't talking to me. She only recently started talking to me about last month. And that was, of course, due to her mother. But I do want to posit something. One of the reasons why my case cost so much was it took me 2 years to beat the child abuse case because she filed against me again. And she did that in response to me filing the first contempt against her in September of 2021. And then she also attacked my mother on her front step in October of that same year.
Wow.
So that's what happened on that deal. So I had to spend all of that money, a lot of that money, just clearing that up.
Damn. So I tried to give you guys some some conceptual information around blue leashing, the extent to which women have been able to do this. Again, I'm 50. This is something that I've seen my entire life. And in fact, my grandfather even could talk about this toward the end of his. But Dead Set and Kofa, I really appreciate both of y'all coming up and telling your stories, because it just highlights that this is real. This is not conceptual. It's not just conceptual. We got to understand how these things have been used against us multi-generationally. And we got to expand the conversation beyond these stereotypes about Black men not caring about family, not wanting to be fathers, deadbeat dads. There's so much more to the conversation that doesn't get talked about, especially in the mainstream. And these brothers just highlighted their situations to do so. So I really appreciate y'all both being that transparent and giving other brothers some inside information. So hopefully they can avoid, going through it. But
I want to ask you something, Doctor.
Oh, go ahead.
Do you think, because that was the Wisconsin representative on the video, right?
DC.
That was
DC. You talking about the video I played earlier?
Yeah.
And Passport OG is in the comments. What's good, man? I played a clip from your show from about 5 days ago. You might have missed it, but I wanted to shout you out, man. Appreciate you doing the work you're doing. But yeah, I do believe that was a DC oversight committee meeting.
Okay, it was a DC. Okay, what that's telling me, because that's one of the jurisdictions I wanted to put my case under, because there have been men who have been making strides in DC that I've known about for the past 3 years. And so one of the things that I wanted to ask you about is that, talk about getting old. Question went right out of my head. Well, one of the things I wanted to ask you about, do you think that, we can say whatever we want about Trump, but they know that there's a male problem, because, we've got all kinds of problems popping up right now. And I think do you think that the impetus behind them now starting to look at this seriously have to do with the looming situation that America is finding itself in financially and where it stands on the world stage?
Well, I definitely think that's playing a role in it. But I think one of the other things playing a role in it is the low birth rates. I mean, there's no nation state that doesn't depend on the family unit. The family unit is the foundation of any country, any large society. And if you're in a situation where people are no longer getting together, and we know in the Black community, coupling, family formation has been an issue for, generations now. It's got to be resolved at some level at some point. And I think this is something that, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was BDS earlier who was doing a show on China and what was going on in China. At some point, the government had to yield way and start advocating for men on some level to entice men to participate. The kind of situations you two are going through is exactly why men are withdrawing. It's exactly why we have a passport bro movement. It's exactly why we have a monk movement, if you will. Yeah. Brothers have been hearing these stories. Like I said, I'm 50. I've been hearing them my entire life. Even before I understood them, I've been hearing them. You know what I mean? And at some point, if you actually want your society to thrive or anything of that nature, you're going to have to give something to men. So I think that's a lot of the impetus behind some of these kind of changes. And we are seeing them in different states. They're just not happening, on a federal level, but we're seeing them happening at state level here and there. And it's starting to expand, but it's also not something that, mainstream news is going to cover from the vantage point we would like it to be covered from. So we just have to keep an eye on it. But I do think it's going to continue to expand because men have, this is the first time in my life I've seen this many men walking away. Mm-hmm. I mean, when I was coming up, it was inconceivable to even say you didn't want to date a woman with kids. That was inconceivable.
Oh no, that was not going to happen. I can attest to that, especially here in the South. It's almost still to this day still standard. Yeah. I can't. I mean, I had several stepfathers. To me, it was so normal. I just assumed that when I became an adult, I was likely going to be with a woman that already had kids. It wasn't even something I thought through. I just assumed it because that's how normal it was. Yeah. So the first time I heard a man say, I don't want to date a woman with kids, I was like, you can do that? They passed a law like we can say that now? Like I didn't even know that was a thing that could be said, so, but things have changed so dramatically, man. They're going to have to start adapting because men are, and I think the mainstream public downplays how withdrawn men have become, but that's going to get harder and harder to do. And I think it already is, but it's going to continue to get harder and harder to do because too many men are doing it.
Yeah, I think this is more of I think this is realignment, really, because number one, what they were doing was unsustainable. Yeah. And so I sort of figured that human beings would go back to our default state. It's like, look, woman, if you don't get it in check, I'm just not going to deal with you. Mm-hmm. Because that's the one thing they can't stop. But at the bottom line is every society needs its strong men in order to operate. Because, I mean, we can talk about AI and machinery all that we want, but still the most common use of force in every society is straight brute manpower. Yeah. We carry stuff. We do this. We do that. We dig ditches. We still build the buildings using hammer and nails. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the bottom line. And the nations know that.
Well, and I can't help but go back to what is an old trope in these spaces. We talk about the impact of the pandemic, COVID. Yeah. Well, men being at home for that long, we all discovered something that we didn't know. That you mean I won't explode if I don't have in-house, Yeah. You know what I mean? I think every man I know just kind of discovered a calm and a peace that we didn't really know existed like that.
A lot of brothers woke up during that time frame because they had a chance to realize who they had been sleeping next to for so long as well. Yeah. When nobody could go anywhere, you had to deal with that woman on a regular 24-hour basis. Yeah. I think a light bulb went off for a lot of brothers, and prayerfully they got up out the situation without having to go through what we're going through.
Man, look, one of the worst culprits in that whole dynamic was for me anyway, was not remembering the last time I had an argument. I woke up one day and, I got the trees outside, the sun is shining. There's no sound. I didn't hear anything. And it just dawned on me. I was like, when's the last time you had an argument? And I couldn't remember. That you want to talk about, checking out. I mean, that did something to me. That did something to me. I mean, so I think just that sense of peace. I know brothers who never experienced peace until that time period, myself included. So that changed a lot for a lot of us.
Yeah.
So
y'all have nice mothers. I just got in an argument with mine, 2 days ago. I got a reminder that I'm still a man, damn it. I don't care if it's your son or not, I'm still a man.
No, my mother's distracted with her husband, so I don't really have to engage the same way as when I was younger. But yeah, man, it's a whole game changer. But that said, man, I appreciate both of y'all coming through. I just wanted to pop up because I saw a few shows, trying to talk about this whole issue. And these are often purple pill kind of shows. So they're in dialogue with women. And so women's starting point in the discussion about fathers and family is deadbeat dads. And I'm seeing these men, some of whose shows I really dig, starting from that vantage point and trying to engage from there. And I'm like, yeah, but you're forgetting one of the major components, one of the major barriers, especially for Black fathers in the last 60 years, has been the leverage that she has with institutions that we don't have the same leverage with.
Exactly.
If you call the police because she's acting a fool, you have to worry about getting locked up and thrown in the back of a car. You know what I mean? If you try to go to court, to family court, to push your case, y'all have both broken down the kinds of barriers that men have to face, Black men in particular. So we don't have the same relationship or trust in these institutions for a reason, but they do. And you cannot have a conversation about the Black family in the last half century without taking that into account. How many women have successfully pushed men away because they could? Just off of that.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Well, I'm with Charlie Kirk. I think they should be publicly flogged.
Damn.
Not that I like him, but I'm just saying.
Yeah.
They need some example set.
Well, I will say in the last 4 or 5 months, I've seen more examples than I ever have of, the base assumptions not working the way they used to. I think y'all may have seen some of the shorts and videos I've done in the last few months where women are getting arrested.
Yep.
For lying, for abuse, and they're as surprised as we are watching the video.
Yeah, I'll be laughing my butt off.
Yeah. But we know, but part of that is because we knew just a year or two ago, she still wouldn't get arrested.
Yep.
But now it's starting to happen. I don't have any data around if there's an uptick, but I can say I've seen more of it recently than having years. So, you might be seeing some kind of a turn, but at the end of the day, man, all I can say is, listen to these brothers, listen to the brothers in the comment section. I can't say if they're right or wrong, especially the brothers in the comment section, but I can say if you're starting to go through anything like this, you've just had a wealth of information thrown at you that you need to investigate for yourself. And I think one of the things Dad said that really kind of got me thinking is you also got to spend a good deal of time looking at the laws in your state.
Yep.
That was one of the things I pulled from what Dad said was talking about, because, we can underestimate how differently each state functions. So be well aware of what the laws are wherever you are and how that plays out. Research what information you've been given, and hopefully you're able to navigate this better than the last man.
One thing before I drop off, Doc, I do want to share with the brothers, because I know there's somebody that's going to hear this, that's going through it, that doesn't feel like they can go to anybody. Just a word that I had to keep in my head, and another brother had to share this with me. You have to love your child more than you hate the mother.
Damn.
That's true.
That will keep you going, even if the child, in dead set situation isn't speaking to you. Again, my homeboy, he's in a similar situation. Even my bonus baby, my youngest, my ex's daughter that I've been raising since she was 2. She got upset with me when she heard that there was somebody, quote unquote, taking her place, pretty much, another baby.
Okay.
So we haven't really spoken.
Wow.
So you start to feel like you're alone, because the people who you've taken care of turn on you or feel like they turn on you. As far as kids, teenagers, they'll come back around. But as far as fighting for your child, you have to love your child more than you hate the mother.
Appreciate that, brother.
I don't know if I can do that.
Yeah.
My hate runs deep.
Yeah.
Any final words for the audience, Dead Set?
Yeah. These hoes ain't loyal, I guess. I don't know.
Man.
I mean, look, only thing I can say is this. If you find yourself in this situation and the lawyers are part of the problem, and I know I'm somebody who swears by lawyers also, but they are part of the problem. And I get in arguments with lawyers online about this because, you know, sometimes they say, hey, I'm a father's rights lawyer, but I'm sitting back like, yes, but you attorneys sit in the state houses and in Washington, D.C. writing these ridiculous laws. And then you all come out here and then capitalize on the pain of families.
Wow.
Lawyers are part of the problem here.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's just like, I don't understand why people don't see that, because lawyers, I understand they got a business to run and they're opportunists. But if you're in this situation, you come across a lawyer and you're interviewing this lawyer, and this lawyer is insistent on not wanting to do in your case what you're requesting them to do. Is like I said, no, I want her in jail. It's like, no, I can get you more time. I was like, I didn't ask you for more time. Then that's not the lawyer you want to use. You need a lawyer who's going to say, I can make this happen. And that is it. Don't mess around with these lawyers who just going to try to get you more time, because all they're going to do is drag it out.
Yep.
Damn.
And he's telling the truth, and I'm a paralegal. So I've heard the stories from attorneys talking about how they file motion after motion to drag things out.
Yep.
Well, thank both of you for coming up. Check this comment out. Andre says, at one point, my ex told me, I know you love your daughter more than everything, so I'll take her from you.
Yep.
This is what I was talking about earlier, whether it's, you know, they like to, you know, make movies about, you know, the only reason women are doing this is because you cheated on her or you abused her or something of that nature. It does not have to go that far. It could simply be that you failed her expectations, and these could be expectations she's never even voiced. These are just things in her head about what you were supposed to do, how things were supposed to turn out, and how she was supposed to feel. And when there is carte blanche access to leverage that you don't have, there's nothing stopping her from doing it just because she's upset. And somehow people think that that's a worthy punishment for a man, you know, to come from a woman he's with just because she's upset.
Yeah. They'll damage the children. If they will damage their own children, you know they don't care about you.
Exactly.
The other thing I say, and then I'm really gonna go because it's almost 1 here in Georgia. But I know this is a black male space, so the way I think about it is we've seen story after story from white men coming out about fighting to get their kids not seeing their kids.
Yeah.
If the system will do this to a white man in America, what do you think they'll do to your black ass?
Yeah.
So document, and just keep fighting, brothers. I know it's easier said than done. Even if you got to take a knee for a month and step away for a second, just stay in the fight, though. Stay in the fight.
Well, I appreciate you coming up, man. And I heard you almost came out this way, man. I was man, hook up with you, man.
Yeah, I was headed that way. Then they were sending me to Maryland, and because of the custody case, I can't even go up to Maryland. So I had to decline that position.
Man.
So,
well, my best to you and your family, bro.
All right, I'll be in touch with you, Doc. Appreciate you having me on. Dead set. Keep fighting, brother. I'm praying with you.
Yeah, I will talk to you later, Doc, about, you know, new direction that I'm going in.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
All right, brothers. I'm out.
All right, peace.
Man,
Peace.
You got a new direction, huh? Shout out to Dead Set and Growth Talk Kofa. Like I said, support the channels. Check them out if you haven't already. You know, most particularly, I know Growth Talk has a channel. I'm not sure if Dead Set does, but you know, you can go through it, through the comments, get to their channel, and take a look, support both of them, and you know, share what information you have for other brothers to be able to benefit from, if at all possible. But yeah, we're about to check out. I just wanted to drop that little word. Let's not forget the institutional aspect of this conversation. Let's not forget institutional leverage and how basically the everyday man, the everyday Black man, can end up fighting not only his ex, but the state, simply at her whim. And that cannot be discounted in these conversations just to highlight the stereotype about fathers being deadbeats. We actually have to have a more grounded conversation about what the everyday man is actually up against. And when you are fighting an entire state, you know, it's a whole different frame of reference from just fighting for your kids, which people just say generically, you know, that a father should do. It's bigger than that. So anyway, that said, thank y'all for coming through. Put your information in the comment section as far as what you think needs to be added to this discussion. If you got stories to tell, if you got warnings to give, or if there's anything you think we overlooked or didn't get right, put that in there. I'll holler at y'all later. Peace.